Naruhodo. Good morning, Professor. Ready for today's proceedings? I hope so. I should be. Even I, with nothing left to... Good morning, my dear fellows. Oh, Mr. Soames, you're here. Why, naturally, a true gentleman stands shoulder to shoulder with his friends in battle at all times. Thank you, I really appreciate it. I'll see you later then. Now, Professor, we really need you to remain calm in the courtroom today. Yes, do try your hardest not to enter the witness in uninvited again. Yes, I will. I realise it was a mistake, but My dear fellows, I must interject! Oh, you're still here, Mr. Soames. What's the matter? Surely you've overlooked some praise, have you not? To be cast in my direction? Sorry, I don't follow. Must I spell it out? I, the great Sherlock Holmes, the greatest detective of worldwide acclamation, arose at some ungodly hour to be here now, first thing in the morning. A miracle, you must agree. Well, if I must agree, then... As you know, my sleep is quite impregnable. Iris had to employ her full gamut of tactics. She pulled the covers off, shook me, poked both cheeks, punched me and kicked me from the bed. Then she poured a boiling cup of her latest experimental blend on my face, and at last I was bestirred. Oh my, Iris has been busy. Iris doesn't have it in her to go that far. She's too nice. I sense the spirit of a fellow scientist, one who relishes the infinite possibilities of blending tea. I'm the one worthy of praise here, not Iris. This is my victory. Sorry to cut in. Oh, Inspector Gregson. Good morning. Gregson, my dear fellow. Why the grim expression at this delightfully early hour? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I've been confronted with a grimmer expression, eh? Dear me, are you going to take that insult lying down, Professor? What? I don't know! Poor Professor. Well, anyway, here's the paperwork you asked for. What paperwork? I took the liberty of requesting it yesterday. I have a feeling it may prove useful. You wouldn't believe the hoops I had to jump through to get this brought out of the archives. It's the Professor's autopsy report. They're mass murderers! Who killed 5 members of the aristocracy? He was found guilty in a closed trial 10 years ago now. It was all done under wraps. And he was quickly executed soon after the trial. It's all in here. I don't know what to say. Thank you, Inspector. Yes, much obliged, Gregson. Us lowly lie at the yard are just doing what we can. In the shadow of the great Detective Sholmes, of course. Well then, Professor Harebrain, this is it. Today we're going to lay all of this to rest at last. I wish you the best of luck, Professor. I suppose he'll be in there today, will he? Drebber. Yes, we expect the prosecution to summon him as a witness. I'm still amazed that you managed to find him in just one day. I really owe you both so much. Counsel and the defendant. The trial is about to resume. Kindly make your way into the courtroom at once. This is it then. The final chapter. Funny. My heart's racing a little. I've not felt this before, actually. Strange foreboding. As if something's going to happen in this trial that I'm not ready for. I can't let that distract me from the one thing that really matters. finding the truth. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the public hearing of Albert Harebrain, here present, who stands accused of murder. Are the counsels for the prosecution and defense ready to proceed? The prosecution is ready, my lord. The defense is ready, my lord. As promised, Lord von Zieks and his apprentice with him. His apprentice with memory loss. If I may, Lord von Zieks. Yes, my lord. There appears to be someone standing at your side. Ah, yes. My apprentice and assistant. The prosecution believes today's proceedings will see the complexity of this case rise considerably. I therefore instructed my assistant to attend to ensure the smooth running of the trial. The smooth running of liquid refreshments by the look of it. Speaking of which, the way he holds himself, the way he moves, it couldn't be anyone else. But he's still suffering from amnesia, so there's really nothing we can do at the moment. I know, but this is so very hard. It would appear the prosecution has done a fine job in responding to the demands of the court made yesterday. I understand you have successfully secured the engineer who disappeared from the scene on the day in question. Yes, my lord. I intend to call him as a witness shortly. Very good, very good. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this courtroom today. Are you ready and willing to proceed? Of course, my lord. I'm sure we all understand the importance of doing our civic duty. I do so despise deception and deceit. I find it so very wearing. To take a man's life with a conjuring trick. It's against the magician's code, not to mention the law. Any fake scientist should feel the wrath of God, if you ask me.
We have to listen to what's said on both sides of the fence. And, then settle on one. That's it, isn't it?
Wasn't like this in my day. Wasn't like this at all. If all parties are ready to proceed, you may begin, Lord von Zieks. Before I do, my lord, there is a report I must read to the court. Yesterday, at the Great Exhibition Grounds, the evidence of primary importance in this case, the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine, which was installed on the experimentation stage, was deliberately destroyed in an explosion affected by an unknown person or persons. What? An explosion! This is an outrage! Yes, I heard this grave news yesterday. Scotland Yard submitted a report to my office in the evening. I read that the machine was blasted to smithers and the wreckage reduced to ashes in the flames. I have here a photographic print of the scene taken in wake of the explosion. Oh. It shows what little remains of the machine. Yes, a terrible business. He did it to destroy the evidence, didn't he? That Enoch Drebber. The court will take this print as evidence, counsel. Late yesterday afternoon, the protection afforded to the machine by the Special Dispensation of Scientific Equipment Act was revoked. However, before a thorough investigation could begin, the invention was obliterated from existence. As such, this will become a very different trial. As it stands now, with no evidence on which to draw meaningful conclusions, the authenticity of the kinesis machine will remain forever in obscurity. Indeed, a most unfortunate state of affairs. However, one thing remains clear. The victim's death was the result of the actions of the accused. Of that, we can be certain. For it was the accused himself who was operating the machine, and who ultimately caused its loss of control.
Objection.
As Lord von Zieks rightly says, this is a very different trial now. The accused accepts responsibility for his part in the events that transpired. He acknowledges that Mr. Asman died as a result of the accident caused by the machine's malfunction. However, unbeknownst to the professor, he was being deliberately deceived by a pair of very clever fraudsters. Names, counsel, if you please. The engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, and the victim himself, Mr. Odi Asman. So what exactly were those two men up to behind the defendant's back? The defense intends to expose that information, thus establishing the unequivocal innocence of the defendant. Thank you, counsels. The positions of the prosecution and defense have been clearly stated. Lord von Zieks, summon your first witness, please. At once, my lord. The prosecution calls the engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to the stand. State your name and occupation for the court. Name, Enoch Drebber. Occupation. Hard to pin down, I would say. See that black monocle? Yes, why do I feel as though I've seen it somewhere before? Oh, you too? I had exactly the same feeling myself. Your file indicates that you are currently being investigated in connection with another case. The theft of a waxwork model, is it? A most extraordinary sounding business. But that has no bearing on this trial, I assure you. Leave it from your mind now. You're familiar with the public experiment carried out at the Great Exhibition some days ago? The accused super high voltage instantaneous kinesis demonstration. Yes, you could say that. I am aware of it. There was a terrible accident, wasn't there? It was you, Mr. Drebber, who constructed the vast machine used in the experiment. Or so our investigations indicate. Can you confirm your involvement? Yes, I constructed it, in precise accordance with the blueprints. But that's all. Then the court would be very interested to hear your thoughts about the machine, I'm sure. An amazing device, if you ask me. The pinnacle of modern science, making instantaneous kinesis of reality at last. What? Good gracious! Did you mean to say that the experiment was bona fide? Is that your belief, sir? Yes, that is very much my belief. Such a waste that it blew up.
Objection.
We've already established the machine was nothing more than a proper and elaborate conjuring trick.
Objection!
You've established nothing of the sort. All that was shown during yesterday's proceedings is that the same outcome could have been produced by means of stage trickery. The defense merely proposed a method and demonstrating its feasibility. Nothing more. But... We've procrastinated long enough, I feel. Witness, you will now give your formal testimony about the machine that you constructed for the purpose of the demonstration at the Great Exhibition. Understood. I met the young professor approximately a year ago through Mr. Asman's introduction. He provided me with a blueprint and I constructed the machine to its precise specifications. It was no trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin? Or the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crashed headfirst into the crystal tower? A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow. Body double? That goes without saying, surely. To give the impression that something has moved when in reality it hasn't is a basic conjuring principle. The deception cannot be achieved without substituting the original with a fake at some point in the performance. But would I be right in saying you haven't managed to establish anything along those lines? Incidentally, the prosecution has already confirmed that Mr. Asman had no twin siblings. It's my understanding that this witness is well versed in conjuring artfulness. But such talents do not indicate that he was actually able to accomplish what he claims. Namely, the construction of what, by all accounts, must have been an extremely complex scientific machine. Whatever do you mean? Yesterday's proceedings brought the true nature of your past exploits to light, Mr. Drebber. Indeed it did, my lord. As a swindler who preys on innocent scientists to elicit government grant money through conjuring know-how. Yes, it's true that I possess considerable knowledge of stage magic. But crucially, my scientific knowledge more than matches that of any academic in the field. Investigation of the witness's workshop attests to that claim, my lord. As evidence, the police found this Royal Society trophy for young talent in science there. Yes, that's true. We spotted it there ourselves. If a hypothesis is sound, it can always be forged into a physical manifestation with sufficient skill. Though I may have sold the secrets of some deceptive wiles to snivelling, talentless scientists in the past. Would you therefore assert that in the explosion of the machine was an unfortunate accident, or, of course, a deliberate act of murder carried out by misuse of the science? Counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord. While I'm going through these statements, I actually want to say something about the pronunciation of Drebber's first name. According to the katakana, it's pronounced Enoch. So, yeah, I did say Enoch before, but, yeah, I'm going forward saying Enoch. So, yeah. Anyway. Perhaps the science... Oh, yeah, there was something that stood out to me. Let's go sure it wasn't. It would have required a body double. Did the victim have a twin? No, but there was something you could have used, but I'm not sure if we can present it right now.
Objection.
Yeah, no. Oh, it was the freaking... Oh, wait, yeah, speaking of evidence. Oh dear. Anyway, yes, we haven't gone through this yet, have we? Condemned prisoner. Redacted for confidentiality. Dang it. Pseudonym. The Professor. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight. 17th of June. Courtney Stevens. Not Sith. Oh no. Alright. I do apologise. Well, not much we can do here, I don't think, except for this lock. This lock does look very strong, doesn't it? There's definitely no way you could remove the mask yourself if it was put on you. What a terrible way to treat someone, even a convicted criminal. No, it's starting to make me livid, actually. So not a hodl, please. Just think about it. Imagine if you had an itch on your cheek all of a sudden. You'd be utterly helpless. Well, yes, that's true. I'm not sure that warrants quite so much anger. Oh, right. Sorry. Yep, no. I think the lock is the only thing we can examine. Who's curious? Sure, we can look at the trophy. There's a little metal plaque here, look. Fostering burgeoning talent for the future of scientific discovery. Seems rather ironic, doesn't it? But clearly Mr. Drebber was a very talented scientist. Anything else? Anything inside it? Nope. Okay. Oh shit! Yeah, I meant to investigate this back at the museum, didn't I? My bad. What a wonderful machine! You really love contraptions like this, don't you? Oh yes! Anything mechanical I find absolutely irresistible! Almost irresistible, surely. Whenever I see a pocket watch, for example, I can't help myself. I simply have to take it apart. That's worrying. Yes, Father tells the time by the rumblings of his stomach now. He's given up having a watch. Poor Professor Mikotoba. What's this stain here? Look, Mr. Naruhodo. What is it? On the bellows just here. There seems to be some very dark red stains. Yes, you're right. It looks like blood, actually. Oh my. I'm sure it's not what you're thinking. Something about the plate. Oh, look. The cover came open. Yes, now, there should be a glass plate inside. You have to change the plate with each new photograph you want to take, you see. Is something wrong? There is no plate. It's been removed. What a pity. I suppose if you think about it, this wouldn't be the actual camera that was used at the time, just like the waxwork isn't the actual person. So we'd never have found a photographic print of the executed convict coming back to life anyway. You're quite right, of course. Poor Susato-san. She looks devastated. Oh man, I wanted to find a new clue. I mean, I guess the red stain there, but apart from that, not much, I don't think. Fascinating. This piece of glass is almost as thick as it is wide. Yes, I've never seen anything like it. If you were to compare it to a human, only Mr. Sholmes has such thick skin. There's really no need for such a comparison, Mr. Naruhodo, as you well know. Anyway, it can only be from the Crystal Tower, surely. Yes, I think so too. It was probably made especially to meet the demands of that great structure.
Objection!
Dang it. So we can't bring the waxwork into the argument yet, can we? I would have to overrule your objection, counsel. The defense would have to accept the penalty given. Glad to hear it. You would also have to think again, I'm thinking, alright, but it seems you're not up to my pay. Fine. I guess we're pressing because I'm guessing there's something that needs to be brought to light before we present anything, so whatever. So, you were already acquainted with Mr. Asman himself? Not really. By chance, I'd seen his name mentioned in the papers, that's all. But I had no interest in his private affairs. If he was an unscrupulous investor, it was no concern of mine. As long as people pay their bills, I take out my tools and construct what they ask for. So why did Mr. Asman approach you in particular, then? Who can say? I presume because my name is associated with excellence in engineering. Not to mention excellence in fraud. Hard to gauge, but the point is, all I did was to construct the machine according to the blueprints I was given. In other words, the kinesis machine was built on solid scientific principles. Yes, you might say that. Professor Harebrain certainly has a mind like no other. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. I mean, did he want the trapdoor? It's clear that you have both scientific knowledge and knowledge of conjuring magic, however. The more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to handle whatever comes along. But your implication is that I furnished the machine with some trickery, I think. It's a possibility that we have to explore. Unfortunately, though, the machine has been blown to Kingdom Come. Yeah, no thanks to you, my guy. So there's really nothing left to explore, is there? It appears that the kinesis machine was fitted with a time explosive device of some kind. There is nothing left of that device either. Not a single shred of evidence remaining, I hear. I must have planned all of this from the outset. But in any case, it's abundantly clear that the experiment couldn't have been a trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin?
Hold it!
Of course, that's it! Mr. Asman was a twin!
Objection!
Perhaps my learned friend wasn't listening earlier. Mr. Asman had no twin siblings. No, I heard you before. The thread of hope hadn't quite left me. The demonstration could have been a trick if there was someone who looked sufficiently like the victim. But Dr. Sith absolutely ruled that out as a possibility. Oh yeah, they're one and the same person. It is beyond question that the victim himself, Mr. Asman, did move from the stage to the Crystal Tower. The fingerprints found at the scene attest to the fact. I thought they weren't officially recognized. So it can't have been orchestrated using someone who looked identical to Mr. Asman then. What are you thinking, Mr. Nod? Oh, now you ask? Oh, no, nothing. Head empty. Just that the idea of someone who looked identical to the victim is playing on my mind. All the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the Crystal Tower.
Hold it!
It crashed headfirst, you said? Oh, wait, what? Head first. Oh, okay, wait. According to the many witness report from those there at the time, yes. Were you not there at the exhibition grounds on the day? Unlikely. I rarely leave my workshop. Yet another of your unique inventions was found at the scene. Well, it was the unveiling of a machine I'd laboured over for many months. I saw it clearly with my own eyes. The birdcage plummeting head first into the tower. What a surprise. I believe the victim's neck was broken from the headlong fall, wasn't it? How would you have come by that information? Even an infernal recluse like me reads the newspapers, you know. According to the reports, 2 injuries were apparent on the victim's body. Yes, he'd been stabbed in the chest by a screwdriver believed to belong to the defendant. He had a broken vertebra as a result from a fall from a considerable height. Correct. My learned friend has been doing his research, it seems. Do we know which injury was the fatal one? Sadly not. Forensic science is not yet at a level where such things can be determined. What we do know is that the victim died having sustained both injuries at some point during the experiment. And since he was found in the birdcage with his neck broken, it's obvious that he fell from a considerable height. I suppose that's hard to deny. Dang it, hold on, let me try this. Alright, he said head first. But if we look at the birdcage, it's damaged at the bottom, if we are to believe this. Really? Come on! Come on! Get out of here! Seriously, this is embarrassing! Sounds serious. I have to prove my worth before he really does send me back home. Oh, this is embarrassing. Oh, this is annoying. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow. Hold it! This is... So you understood the science, did you? Not in the slightest. Sure you do. Right, sure. As I've said a number of times, I'm an engineer. My job is to manufacture according to the blueprints I'm given. I would be inviting manifold problems if I foolishly allowed my brain to just digest the ideas behind them. I could be accused of stealing those ideas, for example. But how is it possible to construct a machine without really understanding the principles it relies on? Well, you're practicing law without really understanding the principles it relies on, are you? Aren't you? Really poking him. A very good boy. Stand up for yourself, Mr. Nuddlehuddle! The point is, the experiment resulted in instantaneous kinesis taking place. As such, the science must be sound. Yes, and really, experimental results are all that matters when it comes to proving a hypothesis. He's certainly very sure of himself. What do you think, Mr. Nuddlehuddle? Well, now that the machine has been completely destroyed by yesterday's explosion, it's going to be impossible to argue its authenticity one way or another. But if we're unable to establish that it was a piece of stage trickery rather than genuine science, we'll have no grounds on which to demonstrate Professor Harebrain's innocence. Both Mr. Asman and this man in the stand tricked the professor and used him. They took advantage of his naivety and his unbending belief in his work, and it won't let them get away with it. And seeing as the professor is an old friend of Lord Von Zeke's, what on earth must he be feeling towards Drebel? Shoot. Okay, I don't think we're contesting this. Constructed... Shoot. It might be this, because, well, the trap door, I'm not sure if that was part of the plan. But... it was no trick. Well, it was a trick, alright. I guess we have to establish that. Well, we can't prove it right now. I'm so... yeah. All the... head first into the crystal tower. It was damaged at the bottom though. What the heck? Wait, hold on. Don't tell me. I swear to... for crying out loud! This is what I get for starting a new save file.
Objection.
Oh my god, are you kidding me? We've examined the birdcage that crashed into the crystal tower ourselves. As you can see, the cage, which is a wooden construction, has sustained damage in one particular spot. Following the explosion, it fell some 30 feet into the glass of the crystal tower. That level of damage is to be expected, surely. I agree. The damage itself is entirely understandable. What doesn't make sense is the location of that damage. All the breakages in the wood are at the base of the birdcage, not the top. What are you saying? That's the opposite of where they should be. That's right, my lord. The birdcage that was at the scene is damaged at its base. So we have reports of the birdcage falling headlong into the crystal tower, yet the damage is at the bottom. The only way to reconcile these two facts is to accept that there were two bird cages in play that day, which were at some point switched. Switched during what wasn't a scientific experiment at all, but an elaborate piece of stage trickery. Gah! Same dude. Oh. Good gracious, explain yourself, witness. Well, if we examine the facts, there's only one logical conclusion we can draw. The damage on the base of the birdcage clearly indicates that it crashed tail first into the tower.
Objection.
But multiple witness reports claimed it fell head first. The birdcage materialized in the sky next to a balloon flying over the stage, following a spontaneous explosion at an altitude of some 60 feet above ground level, which is approximately 18 meters. It then proceeded to fall some 30 feet into the crystal tower in the ensuing deflagration. Witness reports amid such chaos are notoriously unreliable.
Objection.
But the victim's neck was broken.
Objection.
He plummeted 30 feet inside a heavy wooden cage. However he felt, it would have been unsurprising to find one or two of his vertebrae crushed. A riveting scientific analysis of events from the prosecution there. Though to be even more rigorous, You would have to say it was only one vertebra, actually. He wasn't quiet for long. I find it hard to see what's motivating Lord Von Zietz. This witness is clearly a swindler, and one who deceived a personal friend of his. If you're going to establish this deception, do it right. Sorry? I feel like that's the undertone here. Ah, yes, there's one more point. The defense appears to have forgotten. It obviously wasn't a trick, as a certain truth very plainly demonstrates. What? It seems to me that the cross-examination had better continue until we resolve this matter. Mr. Drebel, you will amend your testimony with details of this truth. Of course, we must treat this matter scientifically after all. Oh, I nearly had him there. The kinesis clearly took place because there's nowhere else 30 feet high from the birdcage to have fallen from. I beg to differ if it doesn't take a hit.
Objection.
Fuck. That last statement would seem to be at odds somehow with the evidence. Is it your task, counsel, to explain this somehow to the court, not the other way around? It just seems to jar, though, don't you think? Don't you think? What I think is that this whole exchange has been extremely jarring. God. Perhaps I need to reconsider. This is a disaster. Ah! Okay, wait. Does this explicitly say... Oh my god. Just give me my game over. This is embarrassing. No, I've got nothing else.
Objection.
Thank you. This is a diagram of the experimentation stage and its surroundings. Oh my god. We know that somehow the birdcage appeared in mid-air before falling down into the crystal tower. A fall of about 30 feet, or 9 meters. However, if you examine the diagram carefully, you'll see that there is one other possible location from which the birdcage could have fallen. The same distance of 30 feet. No! Well, it appears the defense has a possible explanation to put forward. Go ahead, counsel. Yes, my lord. Of course. You will indicate the place to which you are referring on this same diagram. The alternative location from which the birdcage could possibly have fallen the requisite 30 feet. Please. I don't want a game over here. The place I'm referring to is here. Well, that's where the birdcage would have been to begin with. Which is exactly the point, my lord. Yes, the birdcage was in the machine on the stage. But what we must also consider is the height of the stage itself. Go on and counsel. It turns out the experimentation stage was built at a considerable height above ground level. If you look at the diagram, in fact, you'll see it's about the same height above the ground as the balloon was above the crash site. When the experiment got underway, the machine and the birdcage were engulfed in steam. At that moment, the floor of the head stage gave way, and if we assume there to be a void underneath, this birdcage and the one seen by the audience would have fallen almost exactly the same distance. Kenji looks rather unfazed. Once again, my lord, this all points to the fact that there was not one birdcage, but 2.
Objection!
My learned friend has no evidence that the stage had such a contrivance in its design. Someone is responsible for the criminal destruction of the kinesis machine itself, it's true. However, the stage still stands. And take a moment to look at the photographic print of the scene following yesterday's explosion. Game! Good lord, the metal grill that formed the floor of the machine is undone. Look, I understand that it doesn't explicitly show the distance underneath it, like... Yes, most likely blown open by the force of the explosion that destroyed the rest of the machine. The defense calls for the space below the stage to be investigated immediately! Mr. Drebber! It was you who built the kinesis machine, which means that it was you who built the 2 bird cages that were used to carry out this deception. Whether Professor Harebrain's hypothesis is sound or not makes no difference here, because it's the construction of this machine that matters, a machine designed to take Mr. Asman's life, and lay the blame firmly at the Professor's door. Something that could have only been carried out by you, Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Objection!
If my learned friend has reached the end of his wild assertions, the prosecution would like to crush the defense's argument, slowly, but surely. The argument fails to hold water on 2 counts. 2. Firstly, before and after the experiment, this witness went nowhere near the kinesis machine. Every relevant member of staff from the exhibition has attested to that. And I believe members of Scotland Yard have also been on watch duty at every public experiment. In other words, Mr. Drebber had no opportunity to switch the alleged pair of bird cages.
Objection!
But I've already explained why he wouldn't have needed to. The nonsense with the crossbow. That doesn't bolster your case at all. The man who disappeared from the stage and the man who crashed into the tower are one and the same. The forensic investigation team's report is unequivocal on that point. And the second flaw in your assertion is a distinct lack of motive. Why would this man have wanted to take the victim's life? He had no reason to do so. A motive? Do I have to think of everything myself? I have here a contract provided by the witness. What contract is this, Lord Von Zieks? The contract into which Mr. Drebber entered with the victim, Mr. Asman. It reads, Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income. 30%? Certainly very favourable contractual conditions. But there was only one very important provision bolted onto that clause. What provision? Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contracting parties are alive. In other words, if either of us were to die, the contract would become null and void. So you see, I had nothing to gain from Mr. Asman's death. The diametric opposite, in fact. Need I say more? The witness had neither an opportunity nor a reason to commit the alleged crime. In short, the possibility of Mr. Drebber having done as you suggest is nil. It seems the defense's assertion was somewhat wide of the mark. Lord von Zeeks, you will submit the contract as evidence, please. It's true. If Drebber had no opportunity to switch the birdcage onto the stage with the one in the Crystal Tower, he couldn't have done it. And in any case, I have no idea what his motive might have been. There is one aspect of your argument that still holds true, however. There were 2 bird cages. The prosecution is unable to deny that. So I'm sure you're on the right lines, Mr. Nuttlehuddle. I have no doubt that there are other aspects of your assertion that are undeniable truths too. Well, it would seem that the defense has no rejoinder to offer. Well, I must say I'm a little surprised. I came here to testify about the machine I built. Instead, my reputation is defiled. But the prosecution's counter has set the record straight, I think. It's impossible that I'm the culprit.
Objection.
At the beginning of this trial, we believed that there was only 1 bird cage. Yet we know there must have been 2. In other words, there was more to the demonstration than we realized at first. I think it's abundantly clear that the same applies to the culprit. Get to the point! The stage demonstration was constructed and set up in its entirety by you, Mr. Drebber. Therefore, it's inconceivable that you had no hand in the events that transpired. So if circumstances mean it's impossible that you could have carried out the crime yourself, it points to the fact someone else was involved. Someone else? Counsel, are you suggesting? Yes, my lord. Mr. Drebber had an accomplice!
Objection!
An accomplice now. Well then, I presume you're prepared for what's to come. Now that you're accusing not only this witness, but someone else of the most serious of crimes. These accusations turn out to be false. Then make no mistake. The prosecution will demand an equally serious punishment for your slander. Well, counsel, do you intend to pursue this course and formally accuse another party of involvement in this matter? What do I do here? At the moment, this is little more than a hunch on my part. I don't know for sure if Drebber had an accomplice, or even if he really is the culprit here. Oh my god. One way or another though, I have to make my position clear as a lawyer. So what's my stance going to be? Did Drebber have an accomplice or not? Name? Okay, wait, let's go through the profile, shall we? Oh god. Oh no, you were gone half the time. I mean, you were at the T mark here. No. He's dead. He wouldn't stab himself, would he? What we're trying to say is not him. No, I don't think so. No. Leader of the forensic investigation team. That has so much power over the crime scene. Right. I'm shooting my shot. The defense is ready to name Mr. Drebber's accomplice. Somehow the two bird cages must have been switched. Everything points to that. Yet according to the coroner's report, that's not a possibility. The coroner. But that inconsistency itself is a clue. Counsel! My lord? You have received a stark warning already. If you are nevertheless determined, then I must now ask you to identify this alleged accomplice by name. So, your answer, please. Who do you claim to have been Mr. Drebber's accomplice?
Take that!
The name of the person in question is... What's wrong, my Nipponese friend? Surely fear doesn't bind your tongue now. It's a little late for that. Of course I'm afraid. After all, naming her in this capacity is definitely going to make waves. A lot of waves. I could very well turn every single person in this courtroom against me. Sure it will be alright, Mr. Nuttlehoddle. Thank you, Mrs. Sutter. The enemy always appears larger than life, but you'll appear exactly the same to the enemy. Alright then, here goes. You've kept us waiting long enough. Your answer, counsel, now! The person who colluded with Mr. Drebber in order to carry out this wicked crime is Scotland Yard's coroner, Dr. Courtney Sith! What the blazes are you talking about? Dr. Sith! The head of the forensic investigation team and the coroner who conducted the autopsy on the victim. We know that there were two bird cages, so who could have carried out the switch to complete the illusion? The accident happened in front of a huge crowd of spectators, and the area was immediately sealed off. Then everyone, police officers included, were banished to make way for the forensic investigation team. When else could the switch have occurred? It can only have been in that team's presence. It's essential that the court determines exactly what happened following the incident. The defense demands that Dr. Sith be summoned to the witness stand at once to testify. You've got a nerve, lad! Standing up there, dragging the yard's name through the mud! I didn't mean to. I know the woman very well. There's no better dead room worker out there. How dare you call her a criminal? My learned friend's imagination appears to be wilder than the East End at night! The recklessness of your accusation aside, there's another grave problem with your argument. One with which the prosecution demands you address at once. A grave problem? Oh my word! Who do you claim acted as the victim's doppelganger? What? Certainly, if the birdcage containing the body of the victim was exchanged for another, that cage must also have contained a body. And yet, no missing persons or accidental deaths of anyone even remotely resembling the victim have been reported. Which means there was no one, dead or alive, who could have fulfilled the role of a body double for Mr. Asman. That's true. My argument is that there were two bird cages, then there also must have been one person inside each. I don't know if I've got the answer to this yet, have I? What can I do to reveal how this body double stunt was achieved? And now... Very well, The defense will address my learned friend's concerns by presenting evidence that reveals the true nature of Mr. Asman's body double. Good gracious! Evidence! I do hope this isn't filibustering, counsel. The court is expecting a name. If you think you have relevant evidence, present it now! The body double and the birdcage were hiding inside the balloon that was floating above the stage, which means that any witnesses would have only seen them from 60 feet away. So who was it that appeared out of that explosion some 18 meters above the spectators? Ah. The body double inside the birdcage was...
Take that!
not human. We know the victim, Mr. Asman, was in the birdcage that was situated inside the kinesis machine on stage. And therefore, he couldn't have been inside the second birdcage. Instead, that contained something else. What's been described as a body double, which is what fell from the sky and crashed into the crystal tower. Yes, counsel, according to your somewhat elaborate version of events. And that body double inside the second birdcage was in fact not a missing person. It's alright, Mr. Naruhodo. You're ready for this! Just steel yourself and come out with it! Thank you, Mr. Sato. I needed that. As I was saying, the body double inside the second birdcage was... as unbelievable as it may seem, that thing there! What? Where'd you come from?
Objection!
Open your eyes and look into mine, my Nipponese friend. Now tell me, what are you playing at? Stand firm now, Ryunosuke. This is the time to show your Japanese spirit. As the court will observe, this is a waxwork model. A model, in fact, of an infamous London murderer from 10 years ago. The Professor.
Objection!
You started by indicting the leader of the forensic investigation team as an accomplice in this crime. And now you've moved on to indicting Waxworks. Yes, that's about the size of it. But why? And why this waxwork? It looks nothing like the victim. In fact, it could hardly resemble him less. What possible justification can you give? If you want to know why, ask Mr. Drebber. What? Just days before Professor Harebrain performed his public demonstration, Mr. Drebber abducted this model for Madame to spell. Did you say abducted? And 2 days after the incident at the Great Exhibition, he returned it to the museum. Then the timing. Is this true, Mr. Drebber? First, I couldn't see why Mr. Drebber would have stolen the waxwork and then given it back again. But now, the reason is clear. He took it so that he could put it inside the second birdcage as a body double for Mr. Asman. Ah!
Objection!
Are you hearing this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Are you hearing the defense's astonishing proposal? That the witness fabricated this vast machine with the intention of deceiving some wretched scientist. That he did so in collusion with the country's finest coroner on a public stage in front of a vast audience. And that, to effect the deception, he used a waxwork model that in no way resembles the victim. Are we really to believe this far-fetched tale? What do you decide?
Objection.
Wait! Yes, if you put it like that, of course it sounds implausible. My lord! I need to speak, if you please. Go ahead, Mr. Foreman. Myself and my colleagues have reached an agreement. Very good. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will state your leanings for the court to hear now.
Guilty.
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 Guilty!
Kill me.
So, as indicated by the foreman, the jury has reached a consensus. I knew that was going to happen. We shall get through this, Mr. Nuddlehuddle, as we always do. And uncover some new truths along the way, I'm quite sure. Yes, I agree. I'm going to have to appeal to the jurors as usual and see if I can persuade them to change their minds. The defense will now embark on a summation examination. Are you and your fellows ready to proceed, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. Very well. In that case, I ask you to state clearly for all present to hear the grounds on which each of you has decided that the defendant is guilty. I've known that woman for years. She's never been an accomplice to anything. It's utter nonsense to think that those two would ever be conniving with one another. Oh dear, this is most troubling. But surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it? I've had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much. I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the birdcage. It's conjecture.
Accusing someone without right evidences? He's not a proper job, is he? I won't have it!
Somewhat unsurprisingly, it seems the introduction of this waxwork model to the proceedings has polarized opinion. Given that its face is obscured and its build in no way resembles that of the victim, I can only applaud my learned friend's temerity at suggesting it as Mr. Asmer's body double. Yes, the applause is deafening. Yes, I know it seems extraordinary. But that's the point. That's why I have a strong feeling it's actually a greater clue than anyone yet realizes. What are you thinking, Mr. Nuddlehuddle? I can't explain why at the moment. I feel as though there's a specific reason why it was used. Why I had to be this model. Really? A reason why nothing else would do, you mean? Yes, and I'm convinced. Something far more significant than whether or not the model looked like the victim. Well, if that's the case, we must prevent the trial from ending prematurely at all costs. Yes, agreed. I have to find a way out of this. If you are ready, counsel, you may proceed with the summation examination. Yes, my lord. The order of things seems to have changed around here for some reason. I'm a copper, lad. It's a copper's discretion to bend the rules sometimes when needs must. What's wrong with that? Where do I start? I've been working at the yard for 40 odd years now. It's even more than I thought. We've only had a metropolitan police service in town for 70 years, you know. Of course, times have changed. The public didn't trust coppers back when I started. It was rough. We had to fight crime, and we had to fight to win the public's trust as well. And when we did, forensic science was in its infancy too, even more than it is now. She spearheaded the revolution. Dr. Sith, you mean? That's right. About 10 years ago now, it was. When I was still a youngish Bobby on the beat. That's when she started making a name for herself as a top-class coroner. And now look at her, head of the forensic investigation team. And a woman, no less. Well, you won't hear me complain. It's what we all dreamt of back then, I tell you. Could you tell me without holding that gun in the air? We were all out to uphold justice, lad. Full of vim we were. Full of vim. That's coming across loud and clear. It's utter nonsense to think that those two would ever be conniving with one another. But we're only just starting to understand this case. What are you reading there, sir? The man behind those murders on Solopon Street was caught in 2 days flat. That's real policing for you. That's really not relevant to this case, is it? You're wrong there. Because it was Dr. Sith in charge of examining the bodies. And it was evidence arising from a work that led to the arrest of the scoundrel responsible. Oh. That's right. Oh, that woman is at the forefront of this country's fight against crime. The idea that she's somehow involved in this murky business is a load of old tosh. Thought it was up to me to press the jurors, not the other way around. Oh dear, this is most troubling, but surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it?
Hold it!
Why would you assume that? Quite simply because that unsettling swindler has no relationship with the woman, does he? True, as it stands, we don't know of any connection. Oh gosh, but it would be delightfully romantic if they were somehow, well, to have a mutual interest in the waxwork. Romantic? A woman of society such as myself views everything in terms of relationships, you know. You learn something new every day, even if you don't want to. One might wonder about a possible relationship between the defendant and this coroner woman. Or perhaps between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor just there. This woman may be more astute than I've been giving her credit for. If that's the woman's stance, then perhaps demonstrating some connection between the waxwork and Dr. Sith would be enough. I agree. As soon as we have even a whiff of a connection, she'll be the first to know. I've had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much.
Hold it!
What sort of problems? Let's just say we had a run into each other on numerous occasions while I have been performing on the street. Right, I see.
Obviously, artists such as myself cannot appear on stage as we work in close proximity to our audiences. So we perform our great magic in parks, on street corners, and the like. But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to say in response to that, Mr. Automole? Who are you calling a mass murderer? Sorry, my mistake. I got confused because I heard you look a lot like him. I don't look anything like the man. You want to be locked up, sonny? Thanks, Mr. Sholmes. Perhaps we could move on. I was really wondering if you had something you wanted to add in response to what juror number 3 just said. And clearly you do. Back in my day, back in the good old days, it wasn't like this. What was it like, sir? We worked our fingers to the bone to earn the public's trust, we did. And by Jove, we earned it. People respected us back then.
Respected you?
No one would have called a coroner into question in them days. The coroner's report was a hallmark of an investigation done right. Especially when Dr. Courtney Stevens put her name on it. She was the best of the best, and the apple of the force's eye. Hold on a minute. What are you talking about? Who's Courtney Stevens? Ah, sorry, got a bit carried away there. Stevens is Dr. Sith's maiden name. Her maiden name? So that was before she was married. Of course, yes. Silly me. It's Sith now, isn't it? Stevens. I'm sure I've seen that name somewhere recently. Anyway, the point is, those were the great days of policing, not like now. Sorry to interrupt, sir. But do you think you could change your statement to include that name? Well, yes, I don't see why not. She was Courtney Stevens back when I knew her, of course. A legendary coroner even then. Let's press again. I'm going to... Let's see. Oh, why would you assume that? Okay, never mind. I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the bird cage. It's conjecture.
Hold it!
Oh well. But you claimed the whole instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a trick. And I did. But there's more than one way to pull a rabbit out of a hat, isn't there? Sorry? I grant you, given that this cage appeared from a mist and an explosion, there would have been no need to use a real person. But if the waxwork had been used, the culprit could at least have had the decency to make it look like the victim. I'm not sure exactly how much criminals are governed by decency. The point is, if you're going to make a claim about that waxwork being inside the birdcage, you need to give us some evidence. Without that, it's just not science. Suppose we should expect nothing less than a logical argument from a fellow of the Royal Society. That perhaps means his mind could be changed if we manage to present suitable evidence. Evidence that the Professor Waxwork was inside that birdcage. Can I produce that or not? Suppose we don't have anything right now, do we? Oh yeah, I didn't read this right. Terms of investment. The investor, Mr. Odi Yasmin, hereby enters into contract with the provider, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to fund labor and materials for the construction of a super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine. Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income. Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contracting parties are alive. Can I prove it? This is definitely important. Oh yeah, we can, right? Yes. Actually, I have something I'd like you to see, sir. Oh? I must warn you that I firmly believe it's only wise to trust men in white coats. So given your, jet black outfit, I don't mind admitting to a sense of trepidation here. So you don't trust anyone in black? Looking in the mirror must be very trying. I do have some evidence that proves the waxwork was inside that birdcage. Namely, this piece of broken glass.
Take that!
What's that? A piece of glass? Though it's unusually thick for glass. Yes, it's a piece of broken glass that we found inside the jacket of the waxwork. As you say, it's no ordinary glass though. It's very thick and clearly made for extra strength. Much like the special glass that was developed for the construction of the Crystal Tower. The Crystal Tower... Holy smoke! Exactly. the centerpiece of the great exhibition where the very incident we're talking about took place. On the day in question, the birdcage fell from above and smashed through a window of that special glass. From whence this small piece originated? Is that it? Precisely. So, what do you say? Now that clear evidence in support of the assertion has been placed before you? Well, as I said, I only trust men in white coats as a rule. However, when the reasoning is sound, it's fair to say colour shouldn't come into it. In light of what you've shown me here, yes, I feel obliged to change my position on the matter. In that case, juror number 4, you will amend your statement now, please. Oh. The presence of that piece of glass leaves me in little doubt that the waxwork was indeed inside that birdcage.
Accusing someone without right evidences? It's not a proper job, is he? I won't have it.
Hold it!
I've got to ask, why have you brought that corn into court with you?
Colonel Cobb, he's been going back on the farm. Picked him up on my way into town. He's a proper nibbler, is he? He's a proper nibbler, he is.
Yes, the nibbling seems to be taking quite a while. Maybe it could wait after the trial?
Well, I don't like the sound of that. You need colonels at times like this. Whenever I have something big to decide, the colonels always point me in the right direction, you see.
You're talking about your cob of corn.
Dewey! Not guilty out. Dewey! Not guilty out.
Oh. Perhaps it's akin to fortune telling with flower petals like people do back home. So Professor Harebrain's fate is to be decided by a cob of corn. Could you not at least wait until we've had more time to find the truth before deciding on the defendant's guilt?
Well, I don't know about that. My time's already full already.
Amazing! I know it seems a little far-fetched to think that the waxwork model of the professor was in that birdcage, but on the other hand, it explains a lot. If there really is a reason why that particular waxwork had to be used as Mr. Asman's double, we must do everything we can to make the jurors understand it. The truth is, I'm sure that's the key to this, but it's the most puzzling part of it too. In that case, you should see what additional information you can glean whilst trying to change the jurors' minds. If you can read a book whilst eating a rice cracker, Mr. Nuttlehoodle, I'm sure you could do this. Right, yes. Shall we pick? She was Courtney Stevens. It's utter nonsense to think these two connive. Oh dear, this is most troubling, but surely it's nothing to do with the coroner. Should we just try it? Oh gosh, it's flashing! My life flashing before my eyes. Hold on, what did he say? Waxwork, is it? Okay.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other! Good gracious! To whose statements do you refer, counsel? So, juror number 2. Gosh me! What can I do for you? I presume that you heard what juror number 6 said in his statement. It's brought to light that the maiden name of the coroner, Dr. Sith, which in turn has revealed a connection that wasn't apparent before. Well, naturally, as a woman of society, I find such connections and relationships irresistible. But oh golly, I'm afraid I've failed to see what you mean. Dr. Sith's maiden name is Stevens. And through that name, the coroner is very definitely linked to the waxwork of the killer. The defense has evidence to prove it. My goodness! Evidence, you say? How utterly enthralling! Counsel, the court cannot overlook that last remark. I very much hope that there is substance to your claim. Of course, my lord. I would ask the court to look at this. The evidence that clearly links Dr. Sith to the mass murderer known as the Professor.
Take that!
I have here a certain autopsy report from 10 years ago. A 10-year-old autopsy report? What relevance does that have? It is, of course, from the autopsy of the person portrayed in the waxwork. The killer known as the Professor. The Professors? But the man was a capital offender, so... That's right. This is certification of death that was drawn up after the convict's execution. The identity of the killer was never made public, so the report gives few details. But what's important is the name of the coroner who wrote it. Courtney Stevens. Oh my, Courtney Stevens! Strike a light! It appears that the professor's autopsy was conducted by Dr. Sith 10 years ago. And a few days ago, Mr. Drebber very deliberately stole the waxwork of the professor from Madame Tuspel. A waxwork that doesn't in fact resemble the victim, Mr. Asman, at all. Do you suppose some unsavory relationship between those events? Absolutely. I'm sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind that the Professor case is at the heart of a link that we have yet to uncover. Between Dr. Courtney Sith and Mr. Enoch Drebber. Hidden links, mysterious connections, secret relationships. This is almost extraordinary. We're surely obliged now to explore this further. Quite right. We can't let this trial come to an end now. Not while there's this cloud of suspicion hanging over the yard's best coroner. It wasn't like this back in my day, but we're still here to uphold justice in the end. It's the Professor. That's what links that frightful swindler and the coroner. There's more? Oh shoot, right, I forgot. If a yard coroner's under suspicion, then we're not done yet here, are we? Clearly! Does that glean in more information? Thank you for reconsidering your position, sir. Your words are misplaced, boy. My opinion is governed by logic and science, nothing else. Yes, science is where you should direct your words of gratitude. What's the matter with you? Too good to say some words of thanks to the mother of all academic subjects? What is it about scientists, honestly? Shoot, what do we do? Without evidence. Do we pit these two? Because there's evidence. Oh god, I'm nervous. Oh, please don't give me a game over. There's no explicit link yet, I don't think, at this point. Please.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other! Good gracious! To whose statements do you refer, counsel? If you could put down your call for a moment during number 5!
Oh, you mean me?
You pointed out that it's wrong to make an accusation without evidence. But the accusation that the waxwork model was inside the second birdcage on the day in question, it's not without supporting evidence, as the defense demonstrated to the juror sitting beside you.
Oh, is that right?
Would it be fair to say you didn't follow the argument?
I don't understand much besides Colonel Cobb, to be honest.
Of course you don't. If I could interject here, please do, sir. Now that this assertion of yours about the waxwork has been backed up by some solid evidence, it would be wrong of me, as a man of science, not to pursue the matter further.
Well, me too then.
Sorry?
If that brainy gentleman says he's right, then he must be. See? I wouldn't dream of going against Colonel Cobb or anyone who's going stuff in between the ears.
Success! If you can call it that. Thank you, counsel, that will do! As a result of the summation examination, the jurors' overall leaning has changed. 2 jurors now call guilty against 4 who call not. Accordingly, the court has failed to reach a consensus at this time. The trial must continue. We did it! Well done, Mr. Naruhodo! Another wonderful victory! A waxwork of the despicable professor, used as a body double for the victim in this quite extraordinary case. I must say it's extremely hard to believe the assertion could possibly be true. However, it would appear that it does at least warrant further investigation. It's the waxwork of the professor that links Mr. Drebber and Dr. Sith. And I'm convinced that there's a special significance to that link. I don't know what you're hoping to prove, lad. I really don't. The truth, sir, by using evidence and testimony. If the court is to delve deeper into the alleged involvement of the waxwork in this case, then the prosecution calls for the owner of the model to be summoned as a witness. The owner! Madame Tuspel. Really thought that Lord Von Zieks would object to this whole line of inquiry. Very well, I concur. Make arrangements for Madame Tuspel to appear as a witness with immediate effect. Listen carefully, my learned friend. Yes? You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box. The court shall now adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon the new witness and prepare her for taking the stand. Madame Tuspel, yes. I shall see to it at once, my lord.